I have been in public safety for 7 years now altogether. If you have sat in any of my classes before, if you've ever met me, ever talked to me, you know my big love, my big love for 911 focuses in on mental health within the 911 space. I teach classes on setting boundaries, on taking care of yourselves, on taking care of your centers. Everything that I do comes from a place of love for my industry. But everything that I do also comes from the experiences that I had where I didn't get to receive some of the things I try to share now. The reason I try to share these things now is because I didn't have them before. So throughout my entire 911 journey, there has been one thing that was said to me that has really resonated and stuck really deep within me that I want to share with all of you. And it's that you can do hard things. And I'm not talking about the little hard things like we're short staffed and we're working a lot of overtime or things like that. I'm talking about the really hard make or break. I don't think I'm going to make it through this kind of thing. You can do it. So today we're going to walk through my journey, where I started from, how I ended up here, and that little guiding light that pushed through and led me through everything to get me to this point, to be able to sit here and say with confidence and authority that you can do hard things. So how do we get here? Like I said, been in 911 for 5 years now. Been in public safety for 7. 2 years before I got into 911, I worked in fire and EMS. My godfather is a paramedic, so that's kind of how I got introduced to this whole space and really fell in love with the idea of helping people, reaching out, serving my community. It seemed like a very, very noble thing to do. To talk about how I made this transition, we need to back up a little further. We need to back up probably 2 more years to when I started college. When I started college, I originally attended school to be an elementary school music teacher. However, when I got to school, I found out that college in a university setting like that was not for me. Not even a little bit. I have very severe anxiety, which I was later found out was going to be a generalized anxiety disorder. And that really just exploded once I got to school and I was by myself, away from everybody and everything that I had ever really known. So I was in this position where I was already compromised. I was already having a hard time. And I was already not performing my best. And then somebody came in and they took advantage of that. And I ended up in a relationship with somebody who, honestly, I had no business being in a relationship with. He lived in Louisiana. And like any love-struck teenager, I just thought this was it. This was true love. We were going to get married, the whole 9 yards. So I dropped out of college and moved to Louisiana. Didn't tell anybody. Didn't tell my family. Nothing. I was just up and gone. Like most domestic violence stories, things changed once I got down there. It was sunshine and roses and happy when I was here and when I would go visit. But when I was there to stay, it was like an entirely different person. I was yelled at. I was berated. I was a number of really just awful things. that this man tried to do to me. He broke my spirit entirely. And on the night that he physically assaulted me, and I called the police, and the police said, unfortunately, there is nothing we can do because it was my word against his. And he was an upstanding member of the community because he was a fireman. He was a first responder. I packed up my things and I drove home. I drove from Louisiana all the way back to North Carolina. And I was at a really low point, but I didn't know that I was at this low point. I'm coming back. I'm in North Carolina now. I'm working with my godparents at their little t-shirt shop. My godfather's going back through paramedic school. And I realize how much I really, truly love public safety. And that's what I want to do. So I joined the fire department. Right, joined my local fire department. Adored it. Had the most amazing time. Worked with some of the most amazing people. Still running off of untreated trauma and a whole lot of undiagnosed mental illness. I get sick. I get physically sick. I still had my tonsils at this time, and my tonsils were consistently swollen and giving me so many problems. And then adding in that I was in the fire department on top of it. So I was exposed to all of those kind of hazards as well, like smoke inhalation and that kind of thing. Fumes, all of that. It just kind of made a bad situation worse. And I found that continuing in the fire department was not going to be something that I was going to be able to do. I had surgery to remove my tonsils and my adenoids, and just about every complication that you could have after the surgery, I had. So I was out for quite a while. And I ended up choosing not to return for the sake of my physical health. So here we go, and I'm low, and I'm starting to come back up, and then I get hit again, and I'm knocked back down. And I'm like, well, crap. Okay, what do I do now? Because this, again, thought I had my life figured out. Thought this is what I want to do. Of course, makes the most sense to me. I'm talking with my godfather, and he tells me, you should apply for the 911 center. Same concept, still get to help people, still get to do all the things I love about being in the fire department, being with EMS. There's just no shiny red trucks. You need a pretty little headset instead. So I was like, okay, sure. So I put in for 911. I got into it, clean slate, started over. Fell in love with the job. It was, from the moment that I walked in the center, it was everything that I ever wanted it to be. I knew this is it. This is what I'm made to do. And not in like a, oh, I've got my life figured out kind of way, but in that resonating feeling in your chest, in your soul kind of way. And this is not a transition that I would have made if I had been afraid to start over. So that's our first big point for how to get through hard things, is understand that it's okay to start over. It's okay to think you have your life figured out and then make an entire 180 on it and do something different. It's okay to think you're going to retire from this one center and then move to another one instead because it's got a better environment, or it's got better hours that are more conducive to your schedule, or it's got better support, or whatever you need to be able to thrive. Starting over doesn't make you a failure. It makes you brave. So I get into 911, fall in love with the job, have a great time. Love to say it was all sunshine and rainbows, but it was not. It was awful. The very first center I worked in, I had a very, very difficult time. Loved the job, but I did not fit in that environment well. I walked in with no boundaries, no limits, no nothing. I had nothing. I didn't have any sense of identity, any kind of boundaries, any kind of space, any person to keep me level, to keep me from losing myself in this. Well, I had nothing but 911. So I poured everything that I had into 911. I had no boundaries, none. I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked, and I let people run over me, and I let people say things to me that I should have stood up for myself for. And I just took it, and I tried to speak up. I tried to do what I thought was right and take it to a superior and follow my chain of command. And I got told I needed tougher skin, and that this is just how it was in 911. And that if I was going to make it, I had to have a thicker skin. I had to be tougher. I had to be stronger. Everything that I'd been through at this point, I came in thinking, okay, I am pretty strong already. So to be told that just knocked me down a little bit. And I was like, wow, I don't know that I want to do this if this is the environment that I'm going to be in. I don't know how to keep doing this. I was miserable. I was awful. And again, a whole lot of undiagnosed mental illness going on right now as well. So at this point, I'm 19 years old, struggling with this job where I love the job, but I don't like where I'm at. Never heard of a concept of boundaries before. Didn't even know changing centers was an option. I thought I was just kind of stuck. But I decided I wanted to take a little bit of control of my life, and I started seeing a psychiatrist to help with what I thought was my anxiety. So at this point, 19 years old, I'm diagnosed with bipolar 1, and I'm put on mood stabilizers, and they help none. In fact, they make things worse. And then I go, oh my gosh, I'm getting better. I'm okay. I'm good now. And so I start dating somebody again. If you don't know what your red flags are, then you don't know how to change them. I just thought I ended up in a bad situation and that it was luck, and not because I missed the signs. I missed that kind of thing. I thought it was my fault that I ended up there, and that it was a happenstance, and that it wouldn't happen to me again. And now here I am at 19, and I'm back in another one of these relationships. It looks a little different, but it's the same concept. So I'm on this medication, and it's really just messing with my mental health a lot, and not in a good way. It's not helping the way it's supposed to. So we change medication, and we change medication, and we change medication over and over and over again. And there's no relief, and there's no help. And I'm getting worse. And I feel like I'm getting worse. And I'm working all the time. I've got this guy who won't leave me alone nonstop. He is just texting me and texting me and texting me and texting me and calling me all of the time. And he tells me that I'm nothing without him, and that I can't do anything without him, and this, that, and the other. And I lost it. I'm sorry. I am so sorry, y'all. At 19, I tried to end my life. A whole child. And I thought I had no business being alive. That I thought I had no business being alive. And that I was just going downhill and going downhill and going downhill. And there was no light at the end of the tunnel for me. And I was done. That was it. I wanted to be done. Thankfully, I was unsuccessful, and an ambulance was called, And I sat in this ambulance, and he looked at me and he said, I know you. I know your people. I'm going to give you two options here. They can take you, referring to my friends that were with me through this whole situation, or we can take you. But I had to go to the hospital. There was no way around it. So I went. I went with my friends, and I spent 72 hours on a psychiatric hold, and I was taking off all of my medication. And it was like, as soon as I was off of it, everything started becoming clear again. And it seemed like there was a light again. And I didn't know what that light was, but it was there. So, come out of the hospital, start kind of picking up the pieces of everything that I feel like has just exploded and fallen apart at this point. I start looking at moving centers. I go to a different center. I get rid of the guy altogether. Ended up having to go to the magistrate to take out paperwork to make sure that he stayed gone. And I started working on trying to build myself up and to recover again. Our next big point. Your mental health is more important than all of it, than any of it. Because you can't help anybody if you can't help yourself. You have to be able to take care of yourself so we can pour into other people. Your mental health is more important. It's more important than the job. It's more important than anything. You have to take care of yourself. So I leave my first center and I go to my next one. At my next center, I think, okay, I have been through some really, really hard things and some bad things, but I'm still here. I've survived every single one of those bad days to get to this point. This is going to be good. Things are going to start looking up for me. While I'm at this center, I make it to 21. From the time that I was probably 17 until I turned 21, I didn't think I was going to see 21. I really didn't. So making it to 21 felt like being over that hurdle, being over that ledge, and things could really start going in a good direction for me. I had a diagnosis for my mental illness. Now, I didn't have medication, but I had a diagnosis. I knew what I was looking at and what I was working with. Not all the pieces fit, but I just figured it was me. And that it just looked different on each person. Still had no boundaries. None. Not a single one. So I'm doing what I think is great, what is in reality okay. And I keep moving forward. In March of that next year, I get into a car accident. It's a very bad car accident. I had to be cut out of my vehicle and life flighted to the hospital, or flown in a helicopter to the hospital. I spent a week in the hospital. I broke my hand, my hip, and I have permanent damage to the left upper quadrant of my body and my left foot. I have permanent nerve damage in my left foot. One of the ways that I was coping with everything that was going on was through exercise. I was a runner. I was training for my first marathon. And now I've got a broken hip and permanent damage to my left foot. And I was like, okay, I've made it this far. I've been through all of these bad days and I'm still here. And quite frankly, most of them were worse than this one. So I'm going to keep moving forward and I'm going to keep going and we're going to be good. We're going to be okay because we've made it this far. I was out of the center for 8 weeks and didn't know what to do with myself. Just kind of ambled around, didn't have any hobbies, didn't really have any friends. I had my boyfriend at the time who was very, very sweet, but he also had a job and he worked full time. So I was just kind of on my own. And I really started to slide into this slump of I don't have anything outside of my job. Instead of looking at that and going, oh my gosh, maybe I need to diversify myself, I went, hey, when can I come back to work? When can I go back? When can I go back? When can I go back? When can I come back? When can I go back? Didn't take care of myself. Didn't do any kind of healing outside of physical, nothing. Even didn't make it all the way through physical therapy. As soon as they cleared me to go to work, that was it. I was done. I went back. So I go back to work. Think I'm doing fine. Think I'm doing okay. And I'm slowly toppling back down this hill. This hill that I feel like I just keep climbing and I keep falling down. Really, what's happening here is there is not an incline. I am just steady going downhill. It's just a different direction than from when I was younger. So December rolls around. I've not done anything to take care of my mental health. I've not done anything to take care of my physical health. And I have a breakdown. And I quit my job immediately. And I said, you know what? I'm done. I don't want to do this. I don't want to work in 911. I don't want to be in this space. I don't want to help people. All of it looks like this. And at this moment, I look back at it and I can see I am screaming that I'm not okay. And nobody hears it. Nobody knows. Nobody sees it. They just go, oh, look, there goes another one. Hate that for her. And you know, we preach and we preach and we preach. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay. But we have to follow through on it. People are not always going to come up to you and be honest and be like, hey, I'm not okay. So you have to watch for it. We have to be there for each other and we have to watch for these signs for when people are not okay. And we have to meet them in their hard places and help bring them to where they can be some semblance of okay. And we cannot imply that you need to get it together or that you need to toughen up or you need to have thicker skin or any of the other things that we may not outright say. Things like, we don't talk about this here, but we imply it. We sure as hell imply it. You keep that bottled up. You separate yourself from your job. You keep that out of the center because that impacts who you are as a telecommunicator, and it is not good, and it is not okay. And all that does is send the message that it's not okay to not be okay. So I leave 911. I'm out. I'm done. Remember, my whole identity is wrapped up in this job at this point, and I don't know what to do with myself. So I reach a point where I can't even get out of bed. I am back where I feel like I have no meaning. I have no purpose. I have no identity. I am nobody outside of 911. And I hit rock bottom. I bounced from public sector job to public sector job to public sector job and couldn't find anything that fit, anything that made me happy, anything that I wanted to do. And I was miserable for months, and I was depressed. And my anxiety was at an all-time high. And at this point, I'm talking with my friends, one of my two best friends. One of them, she's a behavioral health counselor. And we're talking about all of these different things that are going on and all of these different things that I'm dealing with, not just in the depression side of things or in the loss of identity side of things, but the little pieces of my diagnosis that don't fit. And she takes all of these little pieces and she goes, "Have you ever been screened for autism?" And I said, no, me, no, not even, no, I'm bipolar, that's that, I just can't take the meds, and I've got all these other little extra pieces that go with it. I'm autistic, no. And she goes, "You should look at getting tested. Just do a little bit of research. Just look into it." Surprise, surprise. I was misdiagnosed as bipolar 1, and instead I'm actually autistic. I am very, very autistic. One of the tests you take, it's called the RADS-R test. You have to score like a 60 to be considered on the spectrum. I scored 160. So, I was like, oh, okay, that's what this is. So I'm fighting for essentially a diagnosis, and I'm going through all these pieces, and I'm talking to my therapist at this time, and I decide, okay, I think I want to go back to 911. When I left my center, I knew that I was leaving. I quit immediately. I don't even think I worked out very long of a notice. I had applied to a couple other centers because I thought I just wanted to change centers again. I didn't think I wanted to get out of the industry. Well, by the time I had decided I wanted out of the industry, a couple of those places had called me. So I called and I talked to this really, really wonderful person who was the quality assurance manager at an agency I applied for. And, we talked a little bit about what was going on. And he asked me about my experience and everything, why I was leaving, that kind of stuff. And we had a really good conversation. And I was honest with him. I was like, look, I want out of 911 altogether. I'm done. So thank you for calling, but no. And he said, if you ever decide you want to get back into it, you give me a call and I'll get you back in. We'll have a place for you here. That was in December. So March rolls around, and I'm sitting in a parking lot after another interview with an insurance company. And in this interview, they go, "You have the chance to really help people." And that just kind of hit something in me. And I was like, hey, that's what I want to do. I want to help people. So I call the boyfriend, who is now my fiance. And I say, hey, I want to get back into 911. And he says, I don't know about that. I don't know. Because he's been alone for a lot of this journey. And he knows about the stuff that happened beforehand. And he just wants to look out for me. And he wants to make sure that I'm okay. And he doesn't want me to get back into a situation where I end up back in this place that I'm slowly starting to come out of. So we make a plan. We make a game plan. We say, okay, we'll go back to 911, but this is what it has to look like. So I call and I make an appointment with my therapist, and I reach out to my mentor And I say, I'm going to get back into 911. And they say, okay. And I say, this is what I need to do to get back into 911. I need to develop an identity outside of who I am as a telecommunicator. I need to be Hannah, who is a 911 operator, not a 911 operator named Hannah. I have to have something outside of this center. I have to have boundaries. I have to know where my no is and be firm in my no and not let anybody push that. So I called. I had this great plan. I set up an interview. He said, yeah, I remember you. Let's get you in for an interview this week. I went and I took my critter call test. They brought me back the next week for an interview. And remember, I am still at rock bottom at this point. I am very so slowly starting to stand up again. And I was like, I don't know that I can do this. And I get into that interview with these 3 big, goofy guys, right? Absolute sweethearts. Super nice, super comforting, helped me through like all of it. They could see that I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of other stuff going on, but that I could do the job. And we talked about the shift in what I wanted when I came in. The director asked me, what are your career goals? What's your 5-year career plan? And I said, honestly, I don't have one. I don't have a 5-year plan. My goal right now is to just get through this year. It's to get through the next 6 months. It's to get through the next month. Like at this point, I'm taking it by an hour on an hour by hour basis. I got through the last hour, so I can get through this one. I got through the last hour, so I can get through this one. I got through the last day, so I can get through the next day. So, sorry, I know I'm saying so a lot. We go through the interview. I explain this to them. I explain to them that I am published. I've spoken at conferences. I am a trainer, but I don't want to do any of that. All I want to do right now is learn to be a dispatcher again. I want to start from the very bottom and build myself back up on a firm foundation with boundaries and with a good social circle and a support network at a place that is going to do what they can to help me thrive, not just exist, not just to fill a seat, but to be a whole person. So they hired me, and it changed my life. I got placed on a shift with some of the best people that I've ever worked with in my entire life. And they took me from this low point where I didn't know what I could do and if I'd be able to do it again, and helped build me back up and gave me confidence in myself and in my abilities, and gave me friendship and love and support, and made me feel seen. And I had to learn how to work in that. I'd never worked in a healthy environment like this ever. Not ever in my entire career or anywhere else that I had worked or anything else I'd been in. Never worked in a healthy environment like this. I was terrified to talk to my director when I got hired. Absolutely terrified. I was like, nope, no way. If you need a meeting with me, I'm in trouble. Automatically, every single time. Same thing with my shift supervisor and my assistant supervisor. My assistant supervisor is one of the people that I reach out to now on a regular basis. I actually just saw this shift supervisor and one of my dear friends from that shift earlier this week. They helped me learn what a healthy work environment looks like, what a 911 shift is supposed to run like, what a center is supposed to run like, what an admin staff is supposed to look like. And once I started rising, I kept rising. I explored my diagnosis further. I understood why I did the things that I did and how I can manipulate circumstances to better suit what I needed out of them. Whether that was training, whether that was setting and being firm in my boundaries, whether that was branching out more in my life. I learned that it's okay to jump from hobby to hobby to hobby to hobby because it means you have a hobby. It means you have something outside of 911. I learned that it's okay to have friends that you may text and talk on the phone all the time, but you may only see once a year because they're still friends. You're still not alone. And I start to rise and I start to come back up. And I hit these high points after high point after high point. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what I wanted this to be. I start teaching classes again. I start training in my center. I work with our admin staff to develop a 911 college course and start looking at what I need to get certified to be able to go teach that course. And I start building some confidence in myself. I got married in the middle of all of this. I have an amazing husband who is so kind and so supportive and has been with me through a lot of this journey and has only ever wanted what is the best for me. And that's a really hard transition in and of itself, going from poor relationship after poor relationship after poor relationship after poor relationship to a really strong, healthy one. It's kind of like shifting that work environment. You don't really know what to do with it. It's a lot of learning. It's a lot of transitioning. It's a lot of changing. And we are thriving at this point. And I feel like I'm thriving at this point. And I develop confidence and I start speaking loudly. Not about everything that I've been through, but about some of the pieces. About neurodivergence in 911 and what that looks like and how we can make that work for us. About setting boundaries and why they're important and why it's going to help elongate our careers and why being positive and being optimistic is needed, even if it means you're not happy all the time. Why a light at the end of the tunnel is so important. And I was proud of myself for that. I came from such a low point and I built myself up to here. And I'm thriving, I feel like. And then August rolls around. I'm going to cry again. I'm going to go ahead and apologize now. August 1st of that year. August 1st of 2022, the lieutenant from my sheriff's office on the rotation that I had just moved off of, this shift that I love so much, I had moved. I took a position as a trainer and left to go to a different shift. And the lieutenant from my sheriff's office was shot and killed on a call. And 2 of my other officers were also shot in the line of duty on that same call. I worked nights. We were on nights at this point. And I woke up to phone calls and text messages of, this is what's happening. We may need y'all to get ready and to come in to relieve some of the day shift. And I said, okay. And I got up and I start crying. Because at this point, we know people have gone down, but we don't know who it is. And I'm sitting here thinking, one of my friends is not coming home. And I'm texting with my other dear friend who works. We worked on that shift together, and she also got moved because she took a trainer position. And we're texting back and forth, and we're trying to figure out what's going on, and we're trying to get in touch with our people and to see who is okay and who is not. and we find out it's not actually our lieutenant, it's our sergeant, and that he and two others went to go serve commitment papers on a gentleman, and he opened fire. And that hits even further home for me because of all of the mental health struggles that I have had and that I have been through. And now I have lost my friend to this, but not in the way that you would think. And I just kind of start to fall apart again. And I am one of the most optimistic people you will ever meet in your life. And I feel like anybody that knows me or has met me or has talked to me will vouch for that. I am all about a light at the end of the tunnel because there always has to be a light at the end of the tunnel. But that doesn't change the fact that that tunnel is dark. It's dark. There is not always rainbows and sunshine. And that's okay. It's okay to be in the dark and to sit in the dark for a little bit. And then we have to move forward. And we find some form of perspective. And for me, that solidified even further. Mental health matters. Mental health awareness matters. And I cannot be quiet about it because other people need to know that this matters and to reach out, that there is a hand reaching through to help them. So I start working through all of this. I've got a good therapist at this point. I am taking care of my mental health regularly, so we are prepared. That's no. Because you're never prepared for something like this. But she knew how to respond appropriately and in kind and give what I needed to work through this situation. And as we're working through these feelings that I have, I find that it's different. There's sadness because my sergeant is gone and my people are hurt, but there's guilt. And I don't know where the guilt's coming from because I wasn't even on duty. I wasn't even working. I worked the night before. And yeah, these were my people, but surely I'm not pulling in that much of emotion from these people around me and in their hurt. I'm talking to my therapist, and she asks me about my transition from my shift to the next shift. And that's where it becomes clear. This is something that I honestly really debated on talking about, because when I first put this presentation together and I started really talking to my mentor about this kind of stuff, because she had been through the officer down situation before, so she knew what was coming for me. And I told her how I felt. And I was like, I can't talk about this because this is not my pain to share. This is not mine. And I feel like I am co-opting on their grief, on their hurt. And she told me, no, it's not. It's my pain. And it's okay that it's my pain. Because what happened was that guilt that I was feeling was not because I thought I could do something different to help the situation, but because I thought I could do something different to help that dispatcher. The shift that I was on, we essentially had assigned seats. We didn't rotate. We had a sheriff's office dispatcher, a city dispatcher, a fire, and an EMS dispatcher. Everybody was essentially cross-trained, but those were our spots. So when I was on this shift, me and my friend, my shift partner, we worked sheriff's office. That was our spot. We worked sheriff's office and town municipalities. and we'd work both radios together at the same time. And when the promotion positions were announced that they were open, 3 of us applied for them. I applied, my shift partner applied, and a telecommunicator from night shift applied. They gave all 3 of us positions and promoted somebody else. But instead of moving one of us off of our rotation and leaving the other one there, they moved me and my shift partner to different shifts and moved the girl from night shift onto that shift, onto the shift we were on before. And I felt guilt because if I hadn't applied for this promotion and this position, that would have been me at that console instead of her. And I'm already broken. And I've already got all this bad stuff piled up and chipping at me and eating at me that I'm having to sort through. So for me, what's one more trauma on a pile of traumas? But for her, with little to no, I don't want to say no trauma, but like she wasn't dark, she wasn't broken, she was still light and shiny and optimistic and such a good TC, and she still is. But she had to go through this really awful thing, and I felt like part of that was my fault because I took a promotion. So I'm working through these feelings, and I'm working through this guilt that it's eating me up. And I'm so embarrassed to even say anything about it at this point, to really anybody. And I don't know where to go, and I don't know what to do. And I know what happens if I leave it unchecked because I've been there. So I know I can't do that, but I don't know what to do. So I reach out to my friends, my other 911 TCs, and they know what's going on. And when they insert themselves in and they say, "Are you okay?" I say, "No, I'm not. And this is why I'm not okay. This is what's going on. This is how I feel. This is where I'm at. And I don't know how to cope with that." And I have this immense guilt just weighing on me. One of my best friends, she looks at me and she says, "Hannah, I'm going to say this and it's going to sound very harsh, but you need to internalize it and you need to know that it's true." And so I brace myself and I say, "Okay." And she goes, "You're not the main character. You are not the main character in this story. You do not have the power to influence something like that. Your choices did not make that happen. You didn't impact or influence that. There is no way that you could have caused this not like that. There's no way that you could have known that this was actually going to happen. You're not the main character. And that's okay." And that hurt my feelings a little bit. I'm going to be entirely honest. Because I feel like I've got all of this guilt and all of this weight, and now somebody's telling me that I don't even have to hold it. It doesn't even have to be mine. No. And I sit with it. And I sit with it. And it just kind of rings around in my head for several days. And I'm working with my therapist, and we're working through all these different things, and we're getting up and following routine because I thrive in routine. And I take a couple days out of the center, and I go to the debriefing, and I work through these feelings that I have. And I come out at the end, and I go, how beautiful is it that I don't have to be big enough to influence these kind of situations and to cause something so tragic and so terrible simply by taking a promotion. And it gives me a little bit of perspective. This same best friend, her mom used to say this. This was anytime we brought in any kind of struggle, any kind of hardship, any kind of, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. She'd always be like, there's two options. There's two, and that's it. Either it's going to work out and it's going to be okay, or you're going to die. And then you don't have to worry about it anymore. And I know that might seem a little dark, considering everything that we have just talked about and all of the death and the trying to die that we just talked about. But this is true. You're either going to get to the light at the end of the tunnel, or you don't have to worry about the light. There's not another option. The world's not going to explode. You are not going to create some catastrophic change. You don't have to suffer under that pressure, under that weight. And how beautiful is it that we don't have to? We don't have to hold on to that. We can let that go. So I work through these things and I move forward and I come back into the 911 center and I've got a new perspective on this job that I love. And I start to grow again and I start to grow again. And I grow to the point where I have outgrown the environment that I'm in. And it's time for me to go home. This center was my home at that time. These were my people. But it was just me and my husband. My friends were in 911. They were in the center. And that's okay. But I didn't have anything outside of the center anymore. And I started to drift and I started to backtrack. And I couldn't do that. And I knew I couldn't do that. All of my family, we lived out on the East Coast of North Carolina. All of my family lived in the mountains. So my husband and I did a complete 180 and moved out here. I spent some time as a travel dispatcher during that transition and got paid to work in different centers and fill short staffing so that people could take time off and take care of their mental health and to work through what they needed to work through and didn't have to worry about the staffing. And I loved that. But it wasn't conducive to moving back and being home where I needed to be and with my family. So I took a position at another county. If you've been tracking all the places I've been at this point, it has been 4 North Carolina counties and 2 agencies during travel. One of them was in New England and another one was in North Carolina. So 6 counties or 6 agencies in total at this point. And I am now a shift supervisor at my county. And I am teaching my people that it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to set boundaries. And it's okay to take care of yourself because you are more than a position. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel, even when it seems like there's not. Even when that tunnel seems so dark and endless, there's a light at the end of it. One of my current hyperfixation shows is Bluey. Side note, if you haven't watched it yet, please watch it. It's great for children and adults alike. In one of the episodes of Bluey, they talk about working through hard things. And they have a checklist. And this is their checklist. So they have a cry. They feel their feelings. They sit in those feelings. But they don't stay there. You pick yourself up. You dust yourself off. And you keep going. You keep moving forward. Because the show must go on. We keep taking steps through the darkness, through this tunnel. Because we have faith that there is a light at the end of it, even when we can't see it. Thank you.
My friend, thank you so much. Very powerful and just listening to you talk and share your story and being open. I mean, damn, this whole week already, just truth bombs just being dropped all over the place and everyone being open and sharing their story. That's what this is all about. Every session has been those dare to be great moments, and you live through so many and continue to do so. And have people, not a lot of people know this, but what was it, last April, I think it was, or last March, at the ranch that Joe Serio puts on. We were there, and I had the chance um, to take you to the airport, right? And this is one of the things that we ended up doing. So at the end of that week, we were going to the airport together, but we had a few hours before that time. And what did we do? We ended up we ended up taking a road trip
To
to
Bucky's.
Bucky's. Yes. To Bucky's. And during that time, I think it was like an hour and a half away or something like that. But I thought I
Yeah.
said, you know what? We've got time. We can do this. And we went and we experienced Bucky's together. But on the way there and on the way back, basically throughout the whole week, we got to know each other a lot, have some deep conversations, and it was just to me a blessing and just an honor to know you and to hear your story. But again, to hear it here and everything, damn it, so good. Thank you for what you do for this profession, for being here, and just for sharing your story. Thank you. It has been great. Whew. If you guys don't follow Hannah and everything that she does, make sure to do so. She's also over in the community. If you have any questions or anything, I have in the attendee feed, I've been posting everyone's graphics. You can comment on there and ask questions or whichever. We're all over there, and that's why I have that set up so that we can continue this conversation, but also for everyone in the chat. And if you get a chance, Hannah, please go back into the chat and just look over all of that. We were all here with you, supporting you, and I've got goosebumps. It was so good. So thank you so much for everything. Appreciate it.
And thank y'all for being such a great audience. Obviously, it's no secret. This has been a really hard presentation for me to give and to get through, and to have such a supportive audience of people who, even now, when I was struggling to get through to tell you my story, you rallied around me and supported me. And thank you for that. It means so much to me.
It was awesome. Thank you. And for everyone here, we'll be taking you over to the next session. The next session is going to be with Doug Showalter, and he is doing a session called "Are Your Supervisors Really Leaders?" So I will take you back to that one. And again, my friend, thank you very much.
Thank you.